Hello world, my name is Andy Silvers, and today I'm going to make the argument for why you should self-publish. Alright, so as many of you know, I am a self-published author. I have published so far two books myself, a book about camera sensors and my book Red Sprites and Blue Jets. And I am in the middle of writing my next self-published novel, which is going to be revealed later. The title and information about that. Just know it's a contemporary fantasy. That's all I'll say for now. But basically, in this video, I wanted to just talk about traditional publishing versus self-publishing. And I wanted to basically make the case for self-publishing. Because I believe for the vast majority of people, it is going to be the right route for you. And I'm going to explain why that is. So, to put it simply, my thesis statement for this argument is basically that unless you're famous, there's really no benefit to traditional publishing, at least not one large enough to justify it, unless you have some sort of celebrity status. And there's three main reasons for this. So the first reason is that if you're famous, you can get large advances and royalties. So an advance is a lump sum of money that you get up front, and a royalty is basically an amount of money that you get per sale of your book. If you're famous, you have negotiating power because you can go to the publisher and say, well, I'm basically guaranteed to sell, and so you can demand a much larger royalty. For big celebrities, including politicians, the royalty rate can be very high, and then the advance typically can be in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in some cases. So for traditionally published celebrities, it can be a guaranteed income, effectively, guaranteed check. The other reason is less control, but the publisher will invest in the marketing. So in other words, the other reason why a celebrity might want to traditionally publish is there's less upfront investment. They don't have to spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars paying people to help them make their book and paying for the marketing, because the publisher will do that for them. To be clear, a publisher typically does not pay for the marketing of your book, which is one of the reasons I would advise self-publishing. But if you're a famous celebrity, if you're Stephen King, if you're Barack Obama, then your publisher will likely pay for much of the marketing campaign for your next big book coming out, because they know that that money will be well spent in getting eyeballs and attention on that book. And then the other reason is nearly guaranteed sales regardless of effort. So if a big celebrity puts out a book, generally speaking, unless the book is terrible, it's going to sell. It's going to sell copies, and the publisher will at least get their money back, if not make a good deal of profit. And of course, books are out for years and years on end, so it could be racking in dollars for quite some time. So, let's talk about the many advantages of self-publishing, and really the core of my position as to why you should probably self-publish. The first reason is that you have control over the way things are marketed and advertised, things being the sort of campaign of the book. So if you are published traditionally, there is some truth to the idea that you have control then too, because generally what will happen is the traditional publisher will hand you a lump sum of money, the advance, and then a lot of authors, instead of pocketing it, will then use it to pay for their own marketing campaign. So in a certain sense, you do have control over it. But if you are self-published, you have complete control over it. You can choose to market your book however you like: social media, internet, take out ads. You can do whatever you want and target the demographic that's most likely to read your novel. The other reason is that you get to keep more of the profits. Obviously, traditional publishing only comes... Well, no. Self-publishing only comes with royalties. There's no advance for self-publishing unless you just want to write yourself a check, which would be rather fascinating. But you get to keep more of the profits because you're not splitting it with the publishing house. You know, you're getting to keep more of the money, and of course you get to set the price yourself, which you don't get to do traditionally published. So if you believe that the book is going to sell better, you can actually bet against yourself, and you can actually price the book higher in anticipation of higher sales and therefore higher profits. The other reason is you get to own the rights to your work in full. You own the rights to your own work if you own both the book and the ISBN number. You still own the book even if you don't own the ISBN number, but it helps because it gives you more freedom and flexibility as to where your book is going to be located, which platform it'll be located. As for the book itself, if you own the rights to your work, then obviously you get to keep more of the money and you get to choose what happens to it. So if you ever get offered a movie deal, then you have control, you have a say-so in the decision making, whereas your publisher has basically full ownership of that book if you give it over to them, effectively. You get a lot more say-so and a lot more control if you own the full rights to your work. Another advantage is that you get to write any genre or style of book that you want. And this may seem obvious, but actually it's not, because here's the thing. In the world of traditional publishing, there are trends, right? I mean, even in the world of novels, there's trends. But in the world of traditional publishing, there are certain trends. And basically, a publisher knows what's popular right now. So if contemporary fantasy, for instance, isn't popular, you may have a lot of difficulty getting a contemporary fantasy book published traditionally, because the publisher feels pretty confident they're not going to make their money back. They're not going to invest with you. They're not going to spend the time and money to put your book on shelves feeling like it's not going to sell. But if you believe in the book, if you think that your book is amazing and it's going to sell anyway, then you can bypass the gatekeeper, so to speak, and you can actually sell that contemporary fantasy anyway. And so that's a huge advantage, is you get to publish the kind of book you want when you want. Another advantage I've already kind of hinted at is avoiding the gatekeepers like literary agents. The very, very first step you really pretty much have to do if you're looking to traditionally publish is get a literary agent, which is one of the biggest hurdles. It's actually a pretty big challenge in most cases. Once you get one, it's a little bit easier because a literary agent acts as a go-between between you, the author, and the publishing house. But if you're self-published, you really don't have to deal with that. And I also should mention that self-publishing is cheaper than it's ever been before. It's still going to cost you a bit up front, but it's really not that expensive anymore. I know Lulu, for example, you can publish a physical book for free, and you can publish an ebook for, I believe, $5. And that's a one-time $5 payment. I can't speak to every other platform, but I can say that on average, the prices of self-publishing are cheaper than they've ever been before. And then but another reason for self-publishing is that you get to build your brand at your pace in your unique way. So your books are your brand, right? If you're Stephen King, your brand is horror and thrillers. And if you want to brand yourself in a certain way, you can publish the books that you want, and you can use the marketing campaign that you want, and that can allow you to basically control the narrative, the way that people perceive you as an author, and the way that they sort of perceive your books. You have a lot more control over that narrative, over that sort of perception, because you're in control of your own branding and your own image. However, I'm going to be fair. There are some disadvantages, of course, to self-publishing. The main one is arguably large upfront costs. You do have to pay pretty much for everything yourself, so you are probably going to have to save up some funds if you don't already have some. So, for example, you have to pay for an editor, a copy editor. You have to pay for the different kinds of editors. You have to pay for someone to do the formatting for the inside of the book. Unless you want to use a software like Vellum, which is a couple $100, but it is a permanent ownership of that software, which I've heard is really great for formatting. And then you're going to need to pay an artist to do the cover design. Unless you are a professional artist, you probably would benefit from paying someone to do cover design, because people do judge books by the cover. You just have to pay for all the different processes along the way, and it's just a lot easier. Well, it's one of the few things that is easier if you are traditionally published, because your publisher will pay for basically all of that for you. Another disadvantage is you have to find the resources yourself. So not only do you have to pay the editor and the cover artist and all these people, you have to find them yourself. You have to go out there and find a quality editor, cover artist, etc., and that can be a bit difficult, especially if you're new to the process. Another disadvantage of self-publishing is that it is harder to make the New York Times bestseller list and other bestseller lists. However, it is not impossible. It can be done as a self-publisher, I just want to be clear. And the main reason for this is because of the way that the bestseller lists work. Basically, the secret is to sell as many copies as quickly as possible. So the secret to this is pre-ordering. I know that IngramSpark will allow you to do pre-orders. At this point in time, Lulu, which is the publisher or self-publishing platform that I use, as far as I know, does not allow you to do that. But the secret to the New York Times bestseller list generally is pre-orders. It's selling as many books as quickly as possible, and that is a bit more difficult as a self-published author because the traditional publisher will do a lot of the work for you to at least make it possible that it can happen, or make it easier to achieve. And of course, another disadvantage of self-publishing is that you lose the sort of grandeur of being able to say that you're signed with Simon & Schuster, or Penguin Random House, etc. You just don't have the opportunity to say that you're signed with a big publisher, and you get to feel like a big deal. And there's truth to that, obviously. And some people really just want to be able to say that they're with Simon & Schuster. They want to be able to say they're traditionally published, and there are advantages, as I've mentioned. But I would argue that if you just want to be an author, your goal is to just be a writer, that you're going to be able to have equal, if not more, success as a self-published writer. The thing is that if you're an author, you have to put in the work, and if you do put in the work, you're not necessarily going to be any worse off than a traditional writer. The thing is that, you know, people will say that self-publishing is difficult, and of course it is. It is difficult to make a living. But it really isn't more difficult than being a traditionally published writer. Just because you have a publishing house doesn't mean you're going to be making $100,000 a year. That's not how it works. And so likewise, you won't be making $100,000 a year as a self-published author unless you put in the work and, of course, get a little bit of luck as well, generally. But you have to put in the work either way. So don't think that being a traditional writer means instant sales. And then, of course, no one today, I believe, can really just be just an artist. I think that if you really want to be a successful author, you have to also be successful with business. Successful artists generally are also very business savvy, like James Cameron, the filmmaker, comes to mind, and Ted Dekker, the author, comes to mind. The fact is that if you really want to be successful in any artistic craft, you have to study the business, you have to study the industry. To conclude, if you want to self-publish, I would say go for it. If you want to be an author, that is, in my opinion, the best route because of the advantages that I mentioned. It is a fun process, in my opinion. It is not an easy process, but it is a worthwhile process, and I think that in the age of modern technology and social media, self-publishing is not only easier than ever, but more rewarding than ever. All right, thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and check out my latest novel, Red Sprites and Blue Jets, which is available on Amazon.com right now and Barnes & Noble. Has a 4.8 out of 5 stars.